So he said, man, that's tax evasion. You can go to prison.
As you all know, I made a request today for what we were calling a gag order, and I'm not going to walk out of court and do anything other than live up to that.
All right, so get this. Steve Harvey, the guy who's always smiling and hosting Family Feud, might not be so squeaky clean after all. Rumors are swirling, and they're juicier than ever. According to insiders, Steve didn't just hang out with Diddy for those lavish parties we've all heard about. He wasn't there just to sip champagne and rub shoulders with the listers. Oh, no, there's something much deeper going on. How deep? Well, let's just say Steve Harvey might have been collecting receipts. And we're not talking about the kind you get from the store. We're talking about dirt, serious dirt. And now, it's all coming to light.
Hey, real quickly, all that commissary stuff, he's not getting any of that because people in the shoe have an abbreviated list. So he's out of luck. No stake for him. Yeah, he is on watch. This guy thought he would have went home. All of a sudden, he didn't get bond. Remember, the first night that he was there, he was like an overnight guest.
Picture this. Diddy, one of the most powerful figures in music, is sitting behind bars. The man who built an empire on Bad Boy Records and Sean John clothing is suddenly facing charges that could end his career. Racketeering, conspiracy, trafficking, it's all there, and it's like a real-life Hollywood thriller. But here's the kicker. Steve Harvey, America's favorite funny man, has allegedly been caught up in this mess too. Word on the street is that he paid a little visit to Diddy in prison. But it wasn't just a friendly check-in. No. This visit came with a huge ultimatum.
Does he have a shot? I think his attorneys raised some good arguments.
I think they raised good arguments as well. Maybe this will be third time's the charm, because the difference between this bail motion and the prior two is that this one really does get to the heart of what the court was concerned about, which was witness intimidation.
Steve reportedly told Diddy, "Keep your mouth shut about me, or I'll make sure the FBI knows everything." You heard that right. Steve Harvey allegedly threatened Diddy with some serious leverage. But wait, why would Steve feel the need to do that? What kind of secrets could Diddy possibly have on him? Well, if the rumors are true, it all traces back to Diddy's infamous gatherings. Those wild, over-the-top parties where anything and everything could have gone down. And apparently, Steve wasn't just a guest. He may have been taking notes, collecting information, and making sure he had enough ammo to protect himself if things ever went south.
Not done, and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
Now, let's rewind for a second. Diddy's arrest has been front-page news everywhere. The man who once danced on stage to "I'll Be Missing You" in memory of Biggie is now facing some of the biggest accusations of his career, and the ripple effect is tearing through Hollywood. His legal team and insiders have been tight-lipped, but there's no denying that this is a scandal of epic proportions. And Steve Harvey, of all people, has found himself dragged right into the middle of it.
A U.S. judge has ruled that the rapper and producer Sean Diddy Combs will stand trial on federal trafficking and racketeering charges in May. He'll be held in prison until then. Sean Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that he used his business empire to transport women and male workers across state lines to take part in recorded performances. If convicted, he could face a life sentence. David Willis reports.
The allegations are wild. Insiders suggest that Steve has been frequenting these underground gatherings for years, and it wasn't just for the fun of it. Oh, no, Steve was there for a reason. Some are saying he was there to gain leverage. Think about it. A man like Steve, who's built a successful career on his wholesome image, would have a lot to lose if certain details got out. So what better way to protect himself than by making sure he has dirt on the people around him? People like Diddy.
And I understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day. And now there's talk about putting him in, it's like a bubble. It's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on side watch.
It's rumored that Steve's ultimatum during that prison visit wasn't just about keeping his own name out of the headlines. Sources say Steve might have been deeply involved in those gatherings, and if Diddy decided to talk, it could blow the lid off a lot of hidden secrets. Steve may have been collecting information on everyone in attendance, celebrities, executives, athletes, you name it. And now with Diddy behind bars, Steve is allegedly making sure none of those secrets see the light of day.
So I don't give them no energy. I give haters no energy. Steve ain't this, he think he this. You don't even know me.
But why would Steve even need to blackmail Diddy in the first place? Well, let's take a closer look at Steve's image. To the public, he's the perfect family man. He's got that smooth charm, the quick wit, and he's always preaching about love, success, and doing the right thing. But behind the scenes, things might not be as squeaky clean as they seem. Steve's been associated with some pretty shady characters over the years, and it's no secret that his wife, Marjorie, has a past that's raised more than a few eyebrows. Could it be that Steve has been playing a much bigger game behind the scenes, using his connections to protect his own reputation?
Thought Diddy would be throwing all his celebrity mates under the bus.
I mean, that could potentially be coming when it's time for court and when it's time for him to testify. But what we're seeing right now is how important public relations really are to Sean Combs. He's desperately trying to control the narrative behind bars, allowing his attorneys to do documentaries. And
let's not forget that Steve has built a massive empire of his own. He's got talk shows, book deals, endorsements, and more. He's a powerhouse in the entertainment industry, and he's got everything to lose if his name gets dragged into a public scandal. So what better way to shield himself than by making sure he's got dirt on someone like Diddy, who has been known to mingle with some of the biggest names in Hollywood?
Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff.
And here's where things get even more intriguing. Sources close to the situation have hinted that Steve's connection to Diddy isn't just about the parties. There's talk that Steve might have even been using those gatherings as a way to gather intel on other high-profile figures. Think about it, if Steve's sitting there at these extravagant events, rubbing elbows with celebrities, politicians, and industry moguls, what better opportunity to collect information that could be used as leverage down the line? And with Diddy now at the center of this legal storm, Steve's alleged involvement is starting to raise a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's trying a criminal case in the modern times. A lot of evidence is on electronic devices, cell phone, tablets, computers, things of that nature. And the devices, especially if you have like external hard drives, and 90-something terabytes of data on a single device makes me think some type of hard drive. That takes weeks to go through just for one device on its own.
Let's take a moment to talk about these parties. For years, rumors have been swirling about what really went down behind closed doors. Some people say these gatherings were nothing more than extravagant get-togethers for the rich and famous, but others claim they were something much darker, Diddy's infamous freak-off. Parties have been the subject of gossip for years, with whispers about hidden cameras, secret rooms, and all kinds of off-the-record activities. And guess what? Steve Harvey was allegedly right there in the middle of it all.
It's pretty interesting because I think, we have seen many photos, videos of Sean Combs, aka Diddy, through the Associated Press, through Instagram. And so to see him kind of in person after being in jail for 3 weeks now was pretty interesting, to say the least. And I say that by being that you would expect him to feel a little defeated, a little gaunt, anything like that. But it wasn't that case. He appeared confident. He stood tall. But
according to some reports, Diddy had cameras hidden in every room of his home. These cameras allegedly captured footage of celebrities, executives, and athletes doing things they'd never want the public to see. And here's the kicker. Some of that footage might have involved Steve Harvey. Now, we're not saying Steve was caught red-handed doing anything illegal, but the fact that he was reportedly at these parties raises all kinds of questions. Was Steve aware of the cameras? Was he using this knowledge to his advantage? And most importantly, what kind of leverage does Steve now have over Diddy and other high-profile figures? There's also talk that Steve might have been collecting dirt on more than just Diddy. Some insiders suggest that Steve used these parties as a way to gather intel on everyone in attendance. Whether it was celebrities, music executives, or even political figures, Steve allegedly had his eyes and ears open the whole time. And now, with Diddy's arrest making headlines, Steve is doing everything he can to make sure none of this dirt comes back to haunt him.
Some people do think that Diddy can help him, but this guy's going to be locked up forever.
It's no secret that Diddy's legal troubles have sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. The man who once seemed untouchable is now facing some of the most serious charges imaginable. And as the investigation continues, more and more names are being dragged into the fray. People close to Diddy are scrambling to distance themselves from the scandal, but Steve Harvey's name keeps popping up. Could it be that Steve's connection to Diddy goes much deeper than we ever imagined?
So I just keep going through. But then I'll tell you something too, haters motivate me. Because when they talking about me, that means I'm doing something.
As for Diddy, his legal team has been working overtime to fight these charges. But even they can't deny the growing rumors about what went down at those parties. And with Steve Harvey allegedly putting pressure on Diddy to keep his mouth shut, it's only a matter of time before more details come to light. The question is, how much of this is true? And if Steve really does have dirt on Diddy, what else might he be hiding? Diddy's legal troubles have certainly opened Pandora's box. And now, everyone is watching to see what happens next. The media is buzzing with speculation, and insiders are whispering about the possibility of even more high-profile figures getting caught up in this mess. If Steve Harvey really was a key player in Diddy's world, then his squeaky clean image could be in serious jeopardy. And if the rumors about Steve's blackmail attempt are true, it raises even more questions about what kind of secrets he's been keeping all these years.
I think it's to be expected, just the shock of this and the questions about what is ahead of us. I mean, how long is he going to be in custody? Is this an R. Kelly situation? Is he going to not get out for a number of years? Is he going to end up serving a long-term prison sentence from this? Or does he have a chance of beating these charges at a trial that could come?
At this point, the tension is at an all-time high. Diddy's arrest is just the tip of the iceberg, and as the investigation continues, more names are sure to come out. But the real question on everyone's mind is, how far will Steve Harvey go to protect his own reputation? If he's willing to blackmail Diddy, what else might he be capable of? And more importantly, will the truth about his involvement in these parties ever come to light?
But there's also strategic reasons for the prosecutors to want him to have co-defendants, because right now he hasn't waived his right to a speedy trial, which would force prosecutors to take him to trial pretty quick, which they actually might not be ready to do. But if they supersede him and have co-defendants with him, it makes it a lot easier to pursue a trial continuance without him waiving his speedy trial right.
As Diddy sits in a prison cell facing the biggest challenge of his life, Steve Harvey is allegedly doing everything he can to keep his own secrets under wraps. But with so many eyes on this case, it's only a matter of time before the truth comes out. The entertainment world is holding its breath, waiting to see what happens next. And as more details emerge, one thing is clear. This scandal is far from over. All right, let's jump right back in where we left off. The story of Steve Harvey and Diddy is far from over, and now we're about to dive into an even murkier side of the drama that's been unfolding behind the scenes. If you thought things were intense with the rumors of Steve's alleged blackmail of Diddy, just wait until you hear about Steve's family connections, specifically his wife, Marjorie Harvey. Because here's the thing, Steve's not the only one with a complicated past. Marjorie's history is full of shadows too, and when you start connecting the dots, it makes you wonder, what exactly has Steve been trying to keep hidden all these years?
Let's first say that you shouldn't feel guilty for anything.
So let's take a closer look at Marjorie Harvey. Most people know her as the glamorous wife of Steve Harvey, always looking stunning on red carpets and living a life of luxury with Steve and their blended family. But what a lot of people don't know is that Marjorie has some pretty serious skeletons in her closet. And we're not just talking about a few minor scandals here and there. No, this goes a lot deeper.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So I love my man, but what you mean, but?
You see, before Marjorie became Mrs. Steve Harvey, she was married to two very different men, both of whom were heavily involved in some seriously questionable activities. Let's start with her first husband, Jim Townsend. Now, Townsend wasn't just your average guy. He was a major player in a smuggling ring, and we're talking about huge quantities of goods being moved across state lines. In fact, Jim was so deep into it that he eventually got caught and sentenced to life in prison. Yeah, you heard that right. Life behind bars.
In her civil lawsuit, Cassie said that she was the victim of abuse, assault, and rape at the hands of Diddy.
And here's where things get really interesting. At the time of Jim's arrest, Marjorie was pregnant with their second child. According to some reports, she was right in the thick of it with him. It's been said that the FBI had enough evidence to potentially indict her too. But conveniently, Jim decided to make a deal. He took the fall and Marjorie walked away without any charges. Suspicious, right? We mean, how does someone so closely connected to such a huge operation manage to avoid any legal consequences? Makes you wonder if there were some strings being pulled behind the scenes. Fast forward a few years and Marjorie moves on from Jim Townsend. But guess what? Her next husband, Donald Woods, wasn't exactly a Boy Scout either. In fact, Donald was another major player in a similar operation. And it doesn't stop there. Rumors have swirled that Donald and Jim Townsend were actually related. So Marjorie goes from one high-profile figure in the world of smuggling to another, and once again, she manages to come out squeaky clean. How does someone get that lucky twice? It's almost like she's got a guardian angel. Or maybe, just maybe, she knows how to stay one step ahead of the law.
Stand-up comedian, entertainer, television host, family man. But most importantly, I happen to be a man of faith.
Now, obviously, all of this happened before Steve Harvey came into the picture. But here's the thing. When Steve and Marjorie got together, he knew all about her past. And yet, he still chose to marry her. He even went as far as adopting her kids, one of whom, by the way, is Lori Harvey. You know, the same Lori who was linked to Diddy at one point. Yeah, it's all starting to come full circle, isn't it? So this brings us to the big question. Why would Steve, who's always tried to maintain this image of being a clean-cut, family-oriented guy, get involved with someone whose past is so complicated? Well, some people are saying that Steve might have been using Marjorie's connections to his advantage. Think about it. Steve's rise to fame wasn't exactly overnight. He's worked hard for everything he's got, but in the world of showbiz, it never hurts to have a little extra leverage. And if Marjorie's connections could help him navigate some tricky waters in the entertainment industry, maybe that was part of the appeal.
Well, you got to do your due diligence, and his team should have did the due diligence. And a lot of times, people do slip through the cracks. There's things that you don't see and don't find out until later on. But I mean, when people are making claims like the way people are making claims, you have to do your due diligence to make sure that if you're having that person on your platform, which is a huge platform, that you're putting out the proper and correct news.
Well, the problem is...
And let's not forget, Steve has had his own share of controversies over the years. There have been whispers about his dealings with certain high-profile figures in Hollywood, and the fact that he's managed to stay relatively untouched by scandal until now is impressive, to say the least. But now, with Diddy's legal troubles making headlines, Steve's carefully crafted image is starting to crack. You see, some insiders are speculating that Steve's involvement in Diddy's parties wasn't just about having a good time. It was about information. Steve may have been collecting dirt on other party goers, but it's possible that he also had his own secrets to keep. And with Diddy behind bars, there's a real possibility that some of those secrets could come out. That's why Steve's alleged visit to Diddy in prison is so significant. If Diddy were to spill the beans, not just about Steve, but about Marjorie and her past, it could be game over for the Harveys.
I'm not going to talk about anything that I haven't said in court or in the papers. These are all great questions, but I'm just not going to get into it. So
can you speak about your concerns about the leak and the video? You've not spoken about that.
I did it in the court papers, and I'm just going to stick to the court papers. As you guys all know, let me just finish. As you all know, I made a request today for what we were calling a gag order, and I'm not going to walk out of court and do anything other than live up to it.
Now, here's where things get really juicy. Some reports have suggested that Marjorie's past connections could be the key to understanding why Steve is so desperate to keep Diddy quiet. Remember, Marjorie was never formally charged for her involvement in her ex-husband's operations, but if Diddy has information that ties Steve or Marjorie to any illegal activities, even indirectly, that could be a huge problem. And with the FBI already investigating Diddy's empire, there's no telling what might come out in the wash.
Now, to the latest on the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs. This one has so many people talking. The disgraced music mogul facing federal racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking charges. Both the prosecution and defense teams are set to discuss the next phase of action following the indictment as investigators work to determine potential co-conspirators.
So, what exactly could Diddy know about Steve and Marjorie? Well, according to some sources, Diddy's infamous parties were often attended by some of the most powerful people in Hollywood. We're talking about music execs, movie stars, athletes, you name it, and at these parties, anything goes. There have been rumors for years about what really went down behind closed doors, and if Steve or Marjorie were involved in any of those activities, it could spell disaster for their public image. Plus, let's not forget about those hidden cameras we mentioned earlier. If Diddy really did have cameras set up in his homes capturing footage of high-profile guests doing things they wouldn't want the public to know about, then we could be looking at a scandal that's even bigger than anyone realizes. And if Steve or Marjorie were caught on camera, well, you can imagine the fallout. But it's not just Diddy that Steve needs to worry about. There are other high-profile figures who could be implicated in this whole mess. One of the names that keeps coming up is Cuba Gooding Jr. Now, Cuba has had his own share of legal troubles in recent years, and he was apparently a regular at Diddy's parties as well. According to some reports, Cuba and Steve may have crossed paths at these events. And if Cuba decides to cooperate with investigators, who knows what kind of information he could provide.
What his team is trying to do is get the public to assume that the government is leaking some of this negative information about him, like that Cassie video. But the reality is, he's got a lot of enemies, and I really don't believe it's the government.
And then there's Justin Combs, Diddy's son. Justin has been named in some of the lawsuits swirling around Diddy's empire, and he's no stranger to controversy himself. In fact, some people have speculated that Justin's own legal troubles could be connected to the fallout from his father's arrest. And let's not forget, Justin was once linked to Lori Harvey, Steve's stepdaughter. It's like a web of connections that just keeps getting more and more tangled. As the investigation into Diddy's activities continues, more and more people are starting to distance themselves from the scandal. Celebrities, executives, and even political figures who once partied with Diddy are now scrambling to cover their tracks. But Steve Harvey's name keeps popping up, and it's becoming harder and harder for him to stay out of the spotlight. If Diddy decides to talk, we could be looking at one of the biggest scandals Hollywood has ever seen. And Steve Harvey, the man who has built his career on being relatable, funny, and trustworthy, could find himself at the center of it all. The question is, how long can Steve keep the truth hidden? And if Diddy does spill the beans, will Steve's reputation be able to survive the fallout? But while Steve has been trying to keep a low profile, insiders close to the situation claim that he's been quietly pulling strings behind the scenes. There's even talk that Steve has been using his connections to try and sway the outcome of Diddy's legal battles. Could it be that Steve's involvement goes beyond just attending the infamous parties? Some believe that Steve might have more influence over certain high-powered figures in Hollywood than he lets on, and he's doing everything he can to make sure that no one, especially Diddy, reveals the full extent of their connection. If true, this would show that Steve isn't just protecting his own reputation, he's playing a much bigger game. As we dig deeper into Steve's connection to Diddy, it's clear that there's more to this story than meets the eye. Steve has always positioned himself as a man of integrity, a family man who's worked hard to get where he is. But with rumors swirling about his involvement in Diddy's parties and his alleged attempt to blackmail the music mogul, that image is starting to crumble. And with Marjorie's complicated past now coming into focus, the Harvey family could be facing a reckoning like never before.
Stop ignoring the red flags in your relationship and thinking you can change a man.
The entertainment industry is a cutthroat world, and secrets can only stay hidden for so long. As more details emerge about Diddy's arrest and the ongoing investigation, it's becoming clear that Steve Harvey's involvement in this scandal is far from over. The real question is, how deep does this rabbit hole go? And will Steve be able to protect his family from the storm that's brewing? Stay tuned, because this story is only just beginning to unfold. One thing's for sure, Hollywood hasn't seen a scandal like this in a long time, and as the truth comes to light, the list of people involved could get a whole lot longer. Could Steve Harvey's empire survive such a public unraveling? Only time will tell. With Diddy's legal battles intensifying and more names being dragged into the spotlight, you can bet that the coming weeks will bring even more shocking revelations. And as we watch the pieces of this puzzle fall into place, it's becoming clear that Steve Harvey may have bitten off more than he can chew. So, what do you think? Could it be that Steve Harvey has been hiding a darker side all along? And with Marjorie's past connections resurfacing, do you believe Steve's involvement goes even deeper than the rumors suggest? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.